AITAH for wishing my boyfriend would speak up for me when my parents were insulting me. I heard their voices before I even reached the kitchen door. At first, I thought it was just another one of their usual critiques, the sort of comments I had grown up tiptoeing around. But then I heard my own name, followed by a tone that made my stomach tighten. They didn't know I was standing in the hallway. They didn't know I heard every word. And they definitely didn't know my boyfriend, Tyler, was sitting at the table with them, listening in silence. I stepped forward, pretending I had just woken up. My mother didn't bother hiding her expression. She looked at me the way someone might look at a stain they couldn't scrub out. "You really should take better care of yourself," she said, her eyes scanning me in that calculating way she thought was subtle. "You look tired. Maybe if you had your life more organized, things would be different." I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, my father joined in. "I honestly don't know how you manage anything. Tyler, I don't know how you keep up with her. Must be exhausting." They laughed as if I wasn't even in the room. I turned to Tyler. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at them. He just stared at his mug, fingers curled tightly around the handle. That silence stung more sharply than anything they said. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to sit down. I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but my parents kept peppering my every move with small, sharp jabs, and every time they did, I glanced at Tyler, hoping just once he might clear his throat, raise his voice, or simply say, "That's enough." Nothing, not a word. When we finally left and walked to his car, the quiet between us felt heavier than anything inside the house. "You didn't say anything," I finally whispered as he pulled onto the road. He kept his hands tight on the wheel. "I didn't want to cause a scene." "A scene? They were tearing me apart in front of you." He exhaled. "I didn't think stepping in would help." "It would have helped me," I said. "Just knowing you were willing to stand up for me." He didn't respond. He just kept driving. That night, I lay in bed replaying every moment. The way my parents' voices sharpened when talking about me. The way Tyler kept shrinking into himself. The way I kept waiting for something, anything like it was a lifeline that never came. I wasn't expecting him to fight my battles. I was only hoping he wouldn't let me stand alone. The next morning, I found a message from my mother. A casual text pretending nothing happened. Then another from my father, a joke about dinner next week. I deleted them both. When Tyler came over that afternoon, he stood awkwardly at my doorway. He looked tired, but I didn't want to be the one comforting him. "Not this time." "You're upset," he said quietly. "I am," I replied. "I needed you, and you disappeared." "I didn't want them to turn on me too," he murmured. "Your dad is intense, and your mom intimidates me. I know what they're like. I've lived with it my whole life," I said. "But I thought maybe you'd help me break the pattern." He hesitated. "I'm not good with confrontation. I'm not asking you to be a hero," I said. "I just wanted you to make it clear that they can't treat me that way while you sit there." He rubbed his forehead. "So what now?" "That depends," I said. "Are you going to keep avoiding conflict while I'm left to deal with the fallout? Or can you actually stand beside me when it matters?" He didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor as if the right words might appear somewhere in the grain of the wood. At last he said, "I care about you. But your parents are overwhelming, and I don't know if I can change who I am. And I don't know if I can keep doing this alone," I said. We stood there in the doorway, both knowing the truth neither of us wanted to say aloud. This wasn't about one dinner. It was about every moment after, every visit, every time my parents tried to undermine me. It was about whether he would stand with me or stay quiet because silence felt safer. I took a slow breath. "Think about what you want. Because I need someone who won't let me walk into that house unprotected." He nodded. "I will." He stepped backward into the hallway. I closed the door gently behind him. Whether he would step up or whether this was the beginning of the end, I didn't know. But for the first time, I realized the real question wasn't simply whether he would defend me. Tyler didn't text that night. He didn't call either. I kept checking my phone, even though I told myself I wouldn't. Part of me hoped he'd say something, anything that showed he understood how deeply his silence had cut. But the hours passed, the sky darkened, and all I heard was the hum of the heater and my own thoughts circling like vultures. I tried to focus on work the next morning, but the uneasiness followed me everywhere. I reread the email I'd drafted to my parents 3 times, cutting it shorter each time until it was nothing more than a single line. "I need some space from both of you. Please respect that." I hovered over the send button for a full minute before finally clicking it. They didn't reply. That silence, I realized, felt exactly like Tyler's. 2 days went by. I avoided the kitchen, avoided the memories of that morning, avoided the idea of checking his social media to see if he was posting, smiling, living his life as if nothing happened. But then on the third evening, I heard a knock. When I opened the door, Tyler stood there with a grocery bag in one hand and a nervous stiffness in his shoulders. He looked like someone arriving at a stranger's house rather than his girlfriend's. "I brought dinner," he said. "Your favorite." I stepped aside wordlessly. He entered slowly, as if expecting the floor to give way under him. We sat at the table, the takeout boxes between us untouched. The quiet was dense. Finally, I spoke, "So, did you think?" He nodded. "A lot, actually." And he exhaled deeply. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you that day. I honestly thought staying calm was the best thing I could do." "It wasn't," I said softly. "It told them they could keep going." "I know," he said, "but your parents, they're relentless. And I guess I hoped it would stop on its own." "It never stops on its own," I whispered. "Not with them." He reached across the table, hesitated, then placed his hand over mine. "I want to be better for you. I know I've messed up, and I know I should have said something." "That wasn't the first time," I reminded him. "They've done this before. Not as openly, but they've always made those comments. You always went quiet." He didn't deny it. "I thought maybe I was imagining it," he said. "Or maybe you didn't want me to interfere." "I didn't want to overstep." "You're supposed to be the person who stands with me," I said, "not someone who watches it happen." He lowered his gaze. "I'm not used to defending people. I grew up in a house where speaking up made everything worse, so I learned to stay quiet. It's a habit that never went away." His voice shook slightly. "I hadn't expected that. So," he continued, "I'm not asking you to excuse what I did. I just want you to understand why." I studied him for a moment. The sincerity was real, but so were the consequences. "Understanding the reason doesn't erase the hurt," I said. "I know," he whispered, "but I don't want to lose you. Tell me what you need from me. Tell me what standing up for you looks like. I want to try. I just need to know how. I need someone who won't let me be humiliated in my own family's house," I said. "Someone who can tell them, politely but firmly, that they're out of line. Even if your voice shakes, even if it's uncomfortable, even if they glare at you. I don't need yelling. I don't need fights. I need presence." He nodded slowly. "I can do that. I want to do that." I wasn't sure. Part of me believed him. Part of me wasn't ready to believe anything yet. "If we go back there," I said, "and they start again, what will you do?" "I'll say something," he answered, "even if I'm terrified." We stared at one another for a long moment. There was something raw in his eyes, something uncertain but genuine. "I'm willing to try," I said, "but it can't just be words. I need to see it." "You will," he said. "I promise." The real test came sooner than either of us expected. A week later, my mother texted me asking if Tyler and I would come by for a brief talk. No details, no explanations, just the kind of message that used to make my stomach drop instantly. Tyler saw the text. He didn't wait for me to speak. "Well, go," he said. Together, I wasn't sure if I was relieved or terrified. When we arrived at the house, my parents were already sitting in the living room. 2 cups of tea on the table. No warmth in their faces. My father cleared his throat. "We saw your message about needing space. We think it's an overreaction." My mother folded her hands. "And quite disrespectful. Frankly, we've always tried to guide you." I felt my pulse rising. Tyler glanced at me, then back at them. Then he spoke. "I think," he began, voice steady, though I saw the tension in his jaw, "that some of the things said last week crossed a line." My parents' heads snapped toward him. My mother blinked. "Excuse me?" "You were insulting her," he continued, openly, "and I should have stopped it sooner, but I'm not going to stay silent if it happens again." A cold, sharp silence filled the room. My father leaned back. "You think you can come into my house and lecture us about how we treat our own daughter?" Tyler swallowed. I could see the fear, the hesitation, but he didn't back down. "Yes," he said. "If it's hurting her, then yes. I care about her. And if you want a relationship with us moving forward, respect is the bare minimum." I didn't breathe. My mother scoffed. "We're just giving her advice." It wasn't advice, he cut in quietly. It was belittling. Another silence. My parents sat stiffly, taken aback. For the first time in my life, I watched their confidence crack, and that's when I realized something. Tyler was scared the whole time, but this time he chose me anyway. After a long moment, my father said, "Well, be more mindful." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing they had ever given me. When we stepped outside, closing the door behind us, I finally exhaled. Tyler let out a shaky breath and muttered, "That was the most terrifying thing I've ever done." I squeezed his hand. "Thank you." He looked at me with a softness I had never seen in him. "I told you," he said. "I'll learn. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." And for the first time in a long while, I felt something loosen in my chest. Maybe he wasn't the kind of person who spoke up naturally. Maybe he wasn't the bold defender I imagined I needed. But he was someone who listened. Someone who grew. Someone who chose to stand with me even when his voice trembled. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For a few days after that conversation at my parents' house, things felt strangely still, almost like the air after a storm clear on the surface, but heavy with pressure that hadn't really disappeared. Tyler and I tried to settle back into our routine. We cooked together, watched our usual shows, went on walks in the evenings. On the surface, nothing was wrong, but beneath that thin layer of normalcy, something had changed forever, because now I knew what he was capable of, and I also knew how close we'd come to losing each other because he didn't act sooner. Sometimes I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, not in a creepy way, more like he was gauging my mood, making sure I wasn't slipping away. He was careful with his words, careful with his tone, careful with the space he took up in my life. It should have comforted me, but instead it left a faint echo of fear in my chest. I didn't want him to walk on eggshells. I wanted him to stand beside me without being afraid of breaking something. One evening, he asked, "Do you really trust that things with your parents will get better?" It took me a moment to answer. "I trust that they're capable of pretending." He nodded slowly, his expression darkening slightly. "I'm worried they'll test the boundaries again." "I'm sure they will," I said, "but at least now they know I won't take it quietly. And they know I won't stay silent either," he added, almost as a reminder to himself. But the truth is, I wasn't the one I was worried about. It was him. Because standing up once is one thing. Standing up consistently for someone else against people you barely know, who intimidate you, is something much harder. I wasn't sure if he could keep doing it, and I wasn't sure if I should expect him to. The real fracture revealed itself 2 weeks later. My cousin was having a small family gathering, nothing huge, just relatives catching up. Tyler knew how my extended family could be. A little nosy, a little judgmental, but nowhere near as sharp as my parents. Still, he asked, "Do you want me to come with you?" "Only if you want to," I said carefully. "I'm not asking you to fight anyone. It's just a barbecue." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll go." When we arrived, my aunt waved us in with a wide smile and offered us food before we even took off our jackets. It felt almost safe for a while, but then my mother walked in. I hadn't known she was invited. She hadn't mentioned it. And the moment she saw me, her expression tightened subtly, like she had been waiting to see how much she could get away with in front of the others. At first, she kept her tone polite, then she got close enough for only me and Tyler to hear. "You look tired again," she said lightly. "Is everything all right? Or is this another one of your emotional phases?" Tyler stiffened beside me. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on her. "I'm fine," I said quietly. She leaned in, her smile thin. "You can pretend all you want, but you know I'm right. You've always been too sensitive." And that's when I felt Tyler's fingers twitch in his own clenched fist like he was fighting himself. I didn't speak. I wanted to see what he would do. My mother turned to him. "Tyler, you're such a patient boy for putting up with her. Truly, I don't know how you manage." It was the same line as before, the same tone, the same razor-thin mockery. Tyler inhaled sharply. Then, with a voice that trembled just enough to show how hard he was pushing himself, he said, "Please don't say things like that." My mother blinked. "Like what?" "Belittling her," he said. "It's unnecessary." Her smile froze, like she couldn't decide whether to laugh or be offended. "I'm her mother. I'm simply telling the truth." "Then maybe the truth should be kinder," he said quietly. A few relatives turned toward us, sensing tension. My mother's eyes darkened. "You're awfully bold for someone who barely knows this family." "I know enough," he said, "and am not going to stand here and let you talk down to her again." The silence that followed rippled through the entire room. My aunt cleared her throat and quickly invited people to get dessert, clearly trying to dissolve the moment. My mother walked away, expression tight and unreadable. Tyler let out a shaky exhale. "Are you okay?" I whispered. He nodded, though I knew it wasn't fully true. "That felt awful." "You did well," I said. "Thank you." His lips twitched upward. I felt like all the blood left my body. We walked outside for some air, leaving the noise behind us. He leaned against the porch railing. "I don't think you'll ever get used to it." "I don't expect you to get used to it," I said. "I just need you to not disappear." He looked at me seriously. "I'm trying, but it takes a lot out of me." "I know." The wind rustled faintly around us. Then he added, "Do you ever worry that all of this is too much of a burden on me?" I froze. He wasn't saying it out of resentment. He was saying it out of fear. "I worry about that every day," I admitted. He swallowed. "I don't want to fail you again. And I don't want you to think I'm weak because this stuff scares me." "You're not weak," I said. "You're human." He looked down at the ground. "Sometimes I wonder if you'd be better off with someone braver." "That's not fair," I whispered. "Maybe not," he replied. "But I think about it anyway." A heavy silence settled between us. Because for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about whether he could stand up for me. It was about whether being with me meant living in a permanent state of conflict, something he wasn't wired for. And if that was true, then where did that leave us? The answer came unexpectedly. 3 days later, my father called. At first, I didn't plan to answer, but Tyler looked at me and said it might be important. So I picked up. My father's voice was stiff and low. "Your mother wanted me to call. She feels embarrassed about what happened at the barbecue." I didn't say anything. "Embarrassed," he repeated, as if it were physically painful to admit. "She didn't expect your boyfriend to intervene." No apology, just the admission of surprise. Then he added, "She wants to invite you both to dinner to talk properly. Just the four of us." Tyler watched me as I listened. I asked, "Will it be a real conversation or another performance?" My father paused. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, less arrogant, more uncertain. "I suppose that depends on all of us." Tyler reached out and took my hand. When I hung up, he said quietly, "If you go, I go." I looked into his eyes. In that moment, I realized something surprising and impossible to ignore. He wasn't naturally confrontational. He wasn't fearless. He wasn't loud or bold or reckless. But he was trying every day, in every small moment, to be someone who didn't let me face things alone. And maybe that mattered more than any fearless hero ever could. "Well, go," I said softly. "Together." He nodded, squeezing my hand. And for the first time, the future didn't feel like a looming shadow. It felt like something we might actually survive. Dinner at my parents' house wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even tense in the way I expected. It was quiet to quiet. The four of us sat at the table like strangers who were trying to pretend. They weren't afraid of one another. My mother served the food without speaking. My father kept his eyes on his plate. Tyler sat close enough to me that our shoulders brushed. I could feel the tension in his posture, every muscle drawn tight, as if the entire evening rested on his ability to stay steady. For a while, no one said anything meaningful. Then my father set down his fork and cleared his throat. "Your message about needing space," he said slowly, "made us realize we may have crossed lines we didn't intend to." My mother stiffened slightly, but didn't interrupt. He continued, "We have a way of talking that may come off harsher than we think." Nothing about his voice sounded apologetic, but everything about it sounded deliberate. He wasn't giving in. He was choosing restraint. My mother finally added, "I didn't realize my comments were hurting you. I thought I was being honest." "You were," I said, "but honesty doesn't have to be cruel." The silence deepened. Then my mother, who never softened for anyone, looked directly at Tyler. "And I didn't expect you to confront me like that." Her tone was unreadable, but Tyler didn't look away. "I wasn't trying to attack you," he said. "I just didn't want to see her hurting." My mother studied him for a long moment. Something shifted in her gaze, not warmth, not approval, but a faint recognition she had never granted him before. "You care about her," she said. "Yes," Tyler replied without hesitation. "I do." My father leaned back. "If this relationship is going to continue, we all need to be more careful. All of us." It wasn't an apology. Not fully. But it was the closest they had ever come. Dinner ended early. No one lingered. No one tried to pretend we'd fixed everything. Because we hadn't. But something had cracked open. Something fragile, but real. A possibility. When Tyler and I got outside, the night air felt colder than usual. I exhaled slowly. my breath a ghost in the dark. He let out a shakier breath of his own. How do you think that went? I think, I said, that you changed something tonight. He frowned slightly. I didn't want to come off as confrontational. You weren't, I said. You were steady. He looked down at his hands. I was terrified. I know. He met my eyes. But I wasn't terrified of them. Then what? Of disappointing you again. The honesty hit me harder than any of my parents' words ever had. You didn't disappoint me, I said. You showed up. Even when it scared you. That means more to me than being fearless ever could. He breathed out, relief slowly loosening his shoulders. I'm not perfect at this. I'm not good with conflict. But I want to be someone who stands with you. Not just once, not just in big moments, but every time it matters. And you were, I said. Tonight, you were. He nodded slightly, as if absorbing that truth piece by piece. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. Do you still wonder if you need someone braver than me? I didn't hesitate. No, I said. I just needed you. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the words settle. When he opened them again, something warm and steady had replaced the fear. Then I'll keep trying, he said. As long as you'll have me. I will, I whispered. We stood there for a long moment, the cold night surrounding us, but neither of us feeling it. Because something had changed. Not my parents. Not Tyler's nature. Not the years of hurt. But the dynamic between us. The fragile, essential truth of partnership. Had finally taken shape. Not loud, not heroic, not perfect, just two people choosing each other even when it was hard, even when it meant facing the things that terrified them. When Tyler took my hand, the gesture wasn't grand, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't triumphant, it was simple, it was quiet, it was enough, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't standing alone.